All right, y'all. Happy Saturday and welcome to Live. If you don't know me, my name is Monique Young. I go by the student support coach, and I support K through 8 student support teams with transforming discipline referrals into positive social emotional development. And so this is actually my first live on LinkedIn. So we're going to see how this goes. But like I said, I do have a topic for today. And we're talking about no, you don't need that new role to decrease discipline. So, excuse me, I do have my notes down here because I don't want to make sure that I'm not getting sidetracked because this is a topic I talk about a lot, especially as I'm doing lives on Instagram or doing reels. So, again, I have notes so that I'm staying on topic. But like I said, I'm going to be asking questions throughout how I'll see y'all's feedback, I guess, in the comments. We will see. But I'm glad to have you here. And I wanted to kind of discuss why this topic was important, as far as bringing in some type of new role into the school building, right? And expecting for that person to be the person to handle discipline or behavior. And so I want to say, if you don't know, my background is as a school counselor. I've also worked as a student services coordinator. Um, and within that time, because it's been 10 years now, but within that time, of course, everybody knows that we've had the quarantine hit and COVID. With that, the government gave out ESSER funds. Now, ESSER funds could be used to support students in a multitude of ways, but specifically for like school mental health professionals like myself, it helped with being able to provide opportunities to build spaces for mental wellness. So you would see across the country schools deciding to build like mental wellness suites, or it would also provide opportunities for more mental health training, things of that nature, right? Materials, all of that. So you're seeing like more fidgets and more like massage chairs and like all of these things coming in, right? Now, one of the things, because there were about 3 rounds of ESSER funds, and I feel like at a certain point, people started to say, let's get more staff. And so you saw a surgence of new roles being created to help support mental wellness. So that could have been a restorative justice coordinator, a mental wellness specialist. There's so many different names and roles that were created in such a fast amount of time. And like I said, this is over the course of like 2020 to dang near 2022. Just now in 2024, I believe, is when the ESSER funds had depleted. And so now we have, like I said, this surplus of roles. And so a lot of people have had to make hard decisions about how can I move my funds around so that I can either keep these roles on, or, hey, maybe we went without for a year, but we're still seeing that, oh, our discipline is high or our behaviors are out of control. Like we need to bring somebody in, like a dean, a restorative justice coordinator, X, Y, and Z. But I feel very strongly that there are 3 questions that need to be asked first or reflected on first before you bring in a new role. So I want to know from you, were you did you at some point introduce a new role into your school since COVID? Did you introduce a new role, and is that role still present at your school building? That's what I want to know from you. But we're going to get into one of the first questions to reflect on before hiring this new role or sustaining this new role. So, what data supports that this new role is needed? Now, I know most of you are going to say, oh, well, our discipline referrals, right? Or our discipline data. Got it. Now, typically, it's going to fall within the 3Ds as far as what your most significant discipline referral data point is. So the 3Ds being defiance, disruption, and disrespect, because they're so general, right? But again, when we're looking at discipline referrals, why are students getting suspensions? Those are typically the top 3: defiance, disruption, and disrespect. But if you know, or if you studied the brain, you studied a behavior science, you know that behind every behavior, there is some type of social emotional need. So that could be for attention, to escape or avoid. That could be for to access to something, or for sensory. Now, we could go deep into the weeds with that, but we're not going to. But I'm just wanting you to know that typically, whatever behavior you're seeing, so that defiance, that disruption, that disrespect, is typically going to be tied to either attention, escape and avoidance, access, or sensory. So, but it can help you think about, okay, well, why are these behaviors happening? If you are seeing, and like I said, I want you to think about what discipline referrals are you getting the most. If I'm thinking about my past experience in schools and what I saw a lot, there were so many kids skipping, so many kids skipping, and then they would be caught in the bathroom. Now, I'm proud of them because they weren't vaping as much as I thought, the kids would be vaping, but they were just like, I don't want to be in class. So they would meet up in little small groups and, go to the bathroom, hang out, be on their phone, X, Y, and Z. And so, like I said, that turned into discipline for us. But why was that happening? I get it. Class might be boring, or maybe this isn't something I want to do. Maybe the work is hard, or maybe I just want to talk to my friend. But figuring out the why that is happening tells an even broader story. And that's more important because we need to think about number two, and it's connected. So the second question to reflect on before, like I said, hiring this new role is, has our building transformed to meet students' needs? So I kind of gave some examples. If you're having a lot of referrals about students wearing headphones, right? Have you started to allow opportunities for students to listen to music more often? And like I said, it might not even be that it's the individual student, but again, while they're doing independent work, is the teacher playing music in the classroom? Like, we can stop, or we can get in front of the issue before it's happening based off of our data trends. Now, I highlighted that one because that was something that happened a lot in one of the schools that I was at. I was just like, we're making this a bigger problem than it has to be. Like, kids obviously want to listen to music, and being a counselor, and talking with the kids, because this is middle school, high school, the kids would tell me like, hey, this is the way I relax. This is the way I calm down. I want to listen to music. The teacher's on my back because I'm not supposed to have headphones and X, Y, and Z. And I'm just like, well, shoot, the whole class can listen to music. Like, what's the issue? Because now we're creating an issue where an issue doesn't need to be. Let's say if your referrals for, because everybody got the phone policy now, right? Statewide, nobody can have phones out. Well, are you having referrals for students having their phone out? So thinking about why it might be happening, right? Knowing what I know about children is typically they're trying to connect with their peers, right? Yes, they're supposed to be in class and this, that, and the third, but they want to talk to their friends. If they're texting this, that, and the third, sometimes they text their parents, but most of the time they are texting their peers that are there at school with them, but just may not be in the classroom with them. So are we allowing more opportunities for students to connect with each other with little structure? I was going to say no structure, but sometimes when we do no structure, then things get wild. But also, you don't want things to be too structured, specifically for our middle school and high school students, because then it can feel like, oh, I'm being forced to do something. But there should be opportunities where, your seventh graders may be interacting with eighth graders, or somebody who doesn't have a class with kids in English, or having kids opportunities to connect with somebody else from a different classroom. Like, pretty much your whole grade level at the very least should know each other, whether they have classes or not, or they should have opportunities to connect with one another. Because I've seen in my own practice that when students don't know each other, that's when we get these little beefs that start. And now I'm writing notes about this person, or we talking about this person on social media, then we're bringing it back to school. Like, we got to dig deeper as to why is the behavior happening. Because like I said, we got to this conversation all off of referrals for phones being out, right? Okay, what if your referrals are about, again, students who are skipping? right? Are we building opportunities for students and staff to connect outside of academia? A lot of times, even my elementary babies, they would say a lot that, oh, the teacher doesn't like me, or X, Y, and Z. And those would be the kids who act out the most because they like, get me out of here, sis. But like I said, sometimes the schedule feels so concrete, like, oh, we got to teach this standard today. I got to get this. I only got like 45 minutes, or only got 50 minutes in my block. I got to get X, Y, and Z done. But are we building those opportunities either in the school day or somewhere in the school week for them to connect with the person that they're spending this most time with? Because here's my thing: if you think about it and think about support staff, especially at a middle school level, right? It seems that the students seem to connect with adults who are outside of the classroom. So it might even be your ISS teacher, it might be your dean, it might be somebody who's in a supporting role, right? And it seems that students connect with them better. But if you think about it, it's typically because those people aren't putting an academic demand on the student. If the student only sees the teacher as, you're demanding something from me academic wise, and it's something that either is hard for me or something I don't want to do, then I feel disconnected from you. But if they have a relationship with that person, and shoot, math still might be hard for you, but I actually like you. So I'm gonna try. I feel comfortable enough to ask you questions. I feel comfortable enough to ask for help. So there has to be opportunities throughout the school year, not just the first 2 weeks, because I know it's almost back to school time and we do like, oh, build those relationships those first 2 weeks. What about in November? What about in November when we all tired of each other and everybody ready to be nuck every butt? Like the opportunities to build those relationships with their teachers specifically, because again, they spend the most time with them. That could be a way that we're addressing the students wanting to be out of the classroom. But you got to know specifically, why is it happening for your particular school? Because at one school, kids might be skipping for one reason, and at another school they might be skipping for another. You can't just assume. This is why talking to the children and getting their feedback, because they don't lie, but talking to the children and getting their feedback helps you figure out, why is this behavior happening. You could have kids who are skipping because I'm thinking about one of my experiences subbing at a school, and these middle school students, they were in charge of like putting the new trash liners in the trash, right? When I tell you, they thought it was a club or something, because they loved it. Like, it was about 7 children. And like I said, they would go through the hallways, roll a cart or whatever. They had the rest of them. That was their hangout time. They got to hang out with their buddies. They felt like they was contributing to the school. It was something that was real short. I think it only took them like 10 minutes total. But best believe somebody else who doesn't have that job is going to try to leave the classroom to go hang out and kick it with their friends who's doing that job, right? But on the other end, you might be at a school, like I said, also a middle school, where the kids just don't care for the teachers. And they just like, I'm about to get up out of here. I feel like this is a waste of my time. Let me go get out of here. Like, you got to figure out, why is the behavior happening? You might be getting some referrals for disruptions, right? Are we ensuring that the lessons are relevant and include different modalities of learning? As a school counselor, I always try to make sure that whatever I was teaching, that every time I came into the classroom, because again, as a counselor, I'm only coming there about twice a month. But every time that I would go and facilitate a lesson, there was a different modality, whether it was, okay, we're writing this time. Oh, this time we're doing a physical activity. This time we're doing some type of typically it was some type of game. But like I said, either way, I tried to like switch it up, right? But then that relevancy as well too. If the students aren't connecting, they gonna check out, right? They're gonna go to sleep, they're gonna put their headphones in. That's it, that's all. But then some students, like I said, turn that into disruptions. I'm gonna talk to my friends, I'm gonna crack jokes, because I need to make this classroom exciting. Oh, my bad. Okay, I see you down there, Sharon. See, I'm getting new to the StreamYard world over here. So yeah, there could be so many reasons why behaviors are happening, but again, most principals will be able to rattle off what their discipline referrals are. But again, have you done the deeper research of why that situation is happening? Because that could tell you about how does your school, either your culture or the practice and the way that you're doing things, how can that shift so that it's actually meeting the needs of your particular school. So that's what I'm saying. Don't take it at face value of like, oh, the kids just have phones out. Now we need to have a consequence for it, because that's typically what happens is that, oh, let's get a harsher consequence. That's probably not it. Like, look deeper into it. Why do they want to be on the phones? What are they doing when they're on the phones? It could be, if I go to another place, maybe out in the country or something like that, it could be that the kids out on their phone playing games. But in somewhere else, like say if I was in the city, it could be that the kids is FaceTiming. Like, do your research. Okay. But that also kind of rolls into number three. So we talked about the first two questions to reflect on before hiring that new role, right? Is what data supports that this new role is needed? And then the second question was, has our building transformed to meet students' needs? So the third question to think about is, are we optimizing the supporting roles that speak to the need that we have or what the data is telling us? Now, when I say optimizing, that doesn't mean that, oh, well, yeah, let's put some more kids on the counselor's caseload, or let's give some more kids to the therapist, because baby, y'all love to use a therapist. But like I said, let's roll it back here. First of all, it's really good if you understand what are all of these supporting roles and what are actually not just their roles and responsibilities that are on the job description, because that tells one story, but there's other things and needs that pop up day to day. So are you fully understanding what that person is already doing and how they're being utilized? And are you understanding, again, from that data, what is the story being told about what do our kids need? And are our supporting roles able to do it? Because, like I said, it should look like, oh, your school counselors are doing lessons. School counselors and social workers should be doing small groups. They should be doing individual sessions. Are they able to do that? And if not, what is getting in the way? Is it that lunch duties are taking precedence or most of their time? Is it parent meetings, these unexpected parent meetings, pop ups, right? If we are not optimizing the supporting roles that we have, that means that they're being utilized in some other way and they're not speaking to the direct needs that your student has. Just because there's, and I've said this to a counselor the other day, but I'm like, just because there's a line outside your door doesn't mean that what you're doing is being effective or how you're serving students is being effective. So that has a lot to do with, again, are we looking at data, and are we utilizing the staff that we have to actually speak to the data? Because there is a difference between me as a school counselor going in to do a classroom lesson and I'm just doing it because it's on the scope and sequence of our second step curriculum or whatever curriculum we're using. Oh, we're talking about responsibility. But what if I'm talking more specifically about, because I want to tie it back to one of the referrals that I talked about. What if I'm talking more specifically about communication and phones, right? If that's a relevant topic for them because they want to talk on the phone, right? Typically, they want to talk to their peers. What if I'm doing a lesson and I'm talking about ways to communicate with my peers that don't involve a phone? That specifically is speaking to, hey, we have a challenge that's presented that our kids keep having referrals for having their phone out. They keep trying to sneak and get on their phones, right? But let me talk about like, hey, here's ways that we can communicate without the phone. But I got to pair that with, are there opportunities that our school has transformed our either practices or our culture so that there are opportunities for students to connect with one another? And that could be as simple as like, having just more openness or like clubs at lunch or like there's so many opportunities there. But me as a school counselor, I can highlight those skills for a student. And not to highlight the school council role because, like I said, y'all got deans, y'all got wellness specialists, X, Y, and Z. So, do you know what the people do? Are we optimizing them? So, because here's what happens. I've been in several schools where they've already had supporting roles and then they do bring in a new role. Now, anybody knows that when you hire on a new role, not just a new staff member, but a new role that your school has never had, when you bring on that new role, there has to be the onboarding of that person. That person has to have some type of understanding of what their role is. And typically, honestly, these ESSER funded positions typically have been hiring people who have not done the role before. So they have to get accustomed to, okay, what does my day to day look like? What are the boundaries around this job? Where does somebody else pick up? Where do I refer to somebody else? Oh, you got another role, like you got a counselor. Oh, you got a social worker. How do I refer students to them? Like that person has to really understand and conceptualize how does their role fit into the system of your school that's already there. And that can take some time getting used to. And hopefully you've hired somebody who is autonomous and who can kind of take that on and figure that out for themselves. Because if not, you might just have somebody who just sitting there and they waiting for you to tell them what to do. And that becomes a struggle too. So now you got another person on the boat and they not even picking up a paddle to steer this boat. So that's what I'm saying. Like you have to be careful about adding more people because necessarily that's not always the answer. Sometimes that can drag you down because you're spending time trying to uh, accustom this person to your school system. So, I mean, are we willing to take that risk? Or is it that we can utilize the people that we actually have, but also restructure some things about our school culture to get in front of the continuing challenges that were happening? And so I actually have, like I said, I was trying to get everything together, y'all. I have a survey. Let me see if I can put that in there, y'all. In the comments, what I'll put down is a survey to ask you like how ready are you to support students? Is your team ready as far as your student support team? Are they ready to be preventative rather than to be reactive? Um, and like I said, it might be, are your staff communicating? Are they committed to meeting? Are we looking at data? Because that data piece is important. And that's one of the things when I'm presenting, a lot of people say that they don't know how to assess the data they have. So if you're using some type of mental health screener, okay, we did the pre-screener, right? We did our pre-screener for social emotional development. But okay, it gave us some suggestions for tiering. Now we don't know what to do with the tiers. Like we need to have more information. Like you need to have somebody who's working with you who understands um, the assessment of social emotional data. But anyway, so I'll put that link down there for that. But also, it kind of wraps into this conversation of, again, that data. What are the needs that are happening? And are we shifting our school to speak to those needs? Your team should be me. To me, I'm like, if your behavior honestly is out of control, and nobody likes to say that publicly, but if your behaviors are out of control, your discipline referrals are astronomical, you should have a team that is meeting weekly, not every other week, weekly to look at data. Who are you serving? Like what issues are popping up? What are we doing currently to handle these issues? What can we change? Because if you start seeing trends over and over, something needs to shift. Something needs to shift. And so I have a recorded webinar, the weekly meeting structure that cuts discipline that talks about here's like the things you want to discuss at your meeting. Here's what data that these supporting roles should be bringing to the meeting so that you're having this discussion about, you're having an effective discussion about, okay, what trends are we seeing in our building? Because that should be guiding what services your support staff are providing to your building. Okay. All right. So I am going to do this live again. This was kind of my practice, but I hope if you're rewatching this, that this was valuable to you and that you bring more people along. So enjoy the rest of your day and have a good rest of your weekend.